What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Final Central. This is our podcast, Around the Arena. I'm Sam, that's Cody, and this is season 3, episode 2. There's been a long delay on this podcast episode because this is meant to be the esports episode. Now, originally, this episode was not going to be a live thing. We've actually never done this live before, so if you are in chat and asking what this is, go check us out over on YouTube and on Spotify. And if you guys are watching this and need to tune out at any point or things like that, this will be edited and updated to YouTube and also Spotify as well, just like all of our other previous episodes. If you guys are listening over on YouTube and Spotify, come check us out live, as I think all of our future episodes as well will be live here on Twitch and the YouTube channel. Anyways, Cody, welcome. Happy Monday. Happy post-championship weekend from PHL. How you doing?
Doing good, Sam. That was probably one of the longest events I've ever been a part of, if it wasn't for the major qualifiers. But that was definitely the second longest, and it's weird that it's happened twice.
Yeah, definitely. And you are right that it was a long weekend. And for those of you who did not tune in, this past weekend, like I mentioned, was the championship series for the finals Pro Hubs League. Now, if you're a fan of the channel or been around us a long time, you know that we do a lot with PHL. We do what we can to help support the esports scene as much as possible. We did start with watch parties. We've hosted some community tournaments that they've helped us out with along the way as well. But this season, we actually got something totally new, and that was that we actually ran the B stream for North America during the play days, which is the kind of seeding stage and point gathering stage for PHL. And then also both championship series days for phase 1. It was an awesome time. And what happens with a B stream, you might be asking, is, well, we actually, instead of just watching, get to cast and observe the whole thing. So when teams would lose their cash out match, losing being 3rd and 4th place, they would come over. Cody would actually be running the lobbies. They would join. He would run camera and things like that. And we would actually cast them, which made for some awesome moments overall. And honestly, it made me personally love the game even more. And Cody, I know that you've kind of found a new passion when it comes to casting and observing as well, right?
Oh, 100%. I mean, it's fun doing watch parties, and it's definitely fun hanging out with, our community that we built. But overall, being able to kind of take a little bit more of a production heavy side and it really getting into, not only casting, but also observing at the same time, which is still crazy. But doing it with you is always more fun. I think casting in general has become kind of the saving grace for me, especially. It's something to dig my teeth into and keep me engaged with the finals, even when the game itself isn't the most fun.
Yeah, no, you're definitely accurate on that. I think for me as well, it's kind of helped scratch that creative itch. People who've listened to us before, talked with us a while now, know that we both come from some creative backgrounds. Obviously, you've had that itch scratched with your song with Raindrin that you released, To Lose It All. That's, done pretty well here on YouTube, and people seem to be digging a lot because they should. It's awesome. But for me, I mean, I come from a background of being a jazz guitarist and thinking on my feet and doing a lot of improvisation and bouncing ideas off of, my bandmates. And I will tell you that is actually what casting felt like, especially with you. We are two people who've done a lot together in terms of content creation, in terms of gaming and just being friends. And it's been like really cool to see that we've naturally gotten to that place where we can kind of like bounce ideas off of each other. We can tell when somebody's kind of stopping their breath and being able to pick up and continue on. And so overall, awesome experience. I hope we get to do it more. If you are listening to this podcast and you're hosting a tournament yourself, just know we are available. The idea for us is if you've got games and you can't show them all on stream and you need somebody to watch, referee, and also just to have footage from, hit us up. We're happy to do it for you, especially when we get back from the major. So moving on, though, we do need to get into the episode because we got probably a little bit of a lengthy one today. The first part that I do want to do a quick mention on is major qualifiers. Now, we're not going to get into depth on the major qualifiers. That was originally what we said was going to happen at the end of episode 1. However, there's been a lot. And to be honest with you, we've put out a video that recapped everything. It's very quick, pretty digestible. I think it's like 15 minutes. Go check that out. If you want something longer, go check out Young's video, to be honest. It is a great recap. It's pretty in-depth. It's about, I think, almost an hour long-ish. And in my opinion, it is an awesome recap of the entire event overall. Beyond that, though, we are going to be also releasing another video this week, hopefully by the end of this week, which is going to get you caught up to speed on what's been going on between closed quals and the major happening in 2 weeks in Stockholm. As, for example, a lot of teams have been signed now. QDL is the first one that I can think of. The first team to qualify out of Europe, they're now Gen G. And there's been a lot of stories like that. Fnatic have joined the fray. A lot of big name people in esports. Pulsar's got a second team now, which is actually based in North America. There's a lot. And not, on top of that, I mean, PHL has obviously had its own news stories just in itself. And so keep an eye out for that video. Again, it won't be super long. It's going to be similar to the major qual recap we have, so about 15 minutes or so. It's meant to be just a quick get you up and running guide. Okay, I think that's everything we have news-wise, Cody. Let's go ahead and jump into PHL Season 2, specifically Championship Weekend from this past weekend.
So, which was a lot.
It was a lot. Yeah. Both days, roughly, 7 to 8 hours apiece, in a running longer because the grand final format went the distance just about. EU wrapped up a little bit faster.
Arguably, you can say NA went to its capacity. just about.
Just about. We just about maxed out the point totals. And to give you a rundown real quick on what happened, right? Like, what was the format for these days? So on Saturday was EU. They started us off with the weekend, and they played basically several qualification matches to qualify to phase 2. And that kind of worked in similar fashion to other qualifiers we've seen within the finals now, especially with closed quals, right? Teams play a cash out match. They get broken out into 2 groups based on their placements. And then the lower group is an elimination match, and the upper group is a qualification match. If you make it second place and you win the elimination match, you go into another group for another cash out. And you rinse and repeat basically until the teams have been whittled down. And then you move on to phase 2, which consists of 4 teams. All right. Pretty easy, pretty straightforward. Great. Now I'm going to hit you with the confusing part. Here we go. Moving into phase 2, this is what you're going to see in Sweden, and it's never been done before. And there's a lot to talk about with it because there's a lot of drama behind it, to be honest with you. Phase 2 works on a point system, and the way that it works is there's 4 teams in total. Each of them are going to be playing in a cash out match, and again, kind of playing for qualification similar to your World Tour ranked matches, right? The top 2 teams move into 2 final round matches. They're going to play 2 maps back to back. If you win the final round, any of those maps, you earn a point. If you win both, you get 2 points. And the idea is you keep repeating this process of cash out, then 2 final round matches until the team has 5 points in total and they are crowned the champion. Now, EU had some pretty interesting matches. We won't get into phase 2 just yet. Let's kind of talk about the region for just a second. So I think, Cody, we have some of our top contenders by the end of this season. Personally, mine are Alliance, Fnatic, and Team Secret. I'm curious to know if you have any other opinions or if you're kind of on board with that one.
Yeah, to be honest, I think Alliance is it's just a no-brainer. I mean, all bias aside, I think we've seen Alliance continue to adapt and show that they have the endurance that the major needs. I mean, even when we were, in the situation with EU where it was starting to get to even a sliver of what NA showed in terms of just like I said, endurance. Endurance is going to be a word you're going to hear a lot during this podcast because that is the best way to explain it. Outright. I mean, it's just that's what it was. But Alliance is definitely at the top for me there. I think there's a lot of teams that people will name off and we'll forget about others. I said, I think on yesterday, I was talking to Young about it. You were there, Sam. That PHL Season 2, I like to call the season of potential because you saw so many teams close the gap and show that they're a lot more than what you may think they are, and that they continue to improve. And we saw it with FYR, right? They are now the winners of NA, and SSG and other teams like Nightmare struggled to stay locked in those situations. So I'd put FYR up there. And then probably close it off with, Nightmare is just very consistent.
Yeah.
Nightmare is very, very consistent.
Yeah, absolutely. And you are right on the mental battle, as this was a very long day, and the format's going to be doubled in Sweden, right? We're going to have 16 teams instead of 8 starting us off, which is, I think, 16. It sounds about right. Which is going to be a long, long day. Granted, it's
Yeah.
one big thing split into 2 days, whereas PHL was two smaller things, but on both days. But overall, it's going to be a long one. And endurance is what we kind of have found to be the theme of the finals, I think, for finals esports, especially in format during this competitive cycle of the Grand Major 25 is endurance. Who can stay locked in the longest over a lot of really grueling matches and a lot of mentally draining moments. So, a team that I want to talk about real quick before we get into all the mess that was the grand final is I want to talk about Gen.G for just a second. So QDL was the team that first qualified in the Europe region for the Grand Major. That consists of Paco Lim and some other players, and they're a very capable team, very good players. But I do not know what has happened to this team in PHL. I mean, I think they did wind up this season coming in like dead last, which, and I tried to catch most of their games. We did not watch Party EU this season because we have a lot going on with the major coming up, a lot of things behind the scenes that we've been planning. But overall, man, that team, I'm very a little nervous for them coming into the major. I hope that they find some footing quickly, but overall, they're definitely one that I'm going to be trying to watch to see if they can perform a little better once we get to the major. Moving on to Champ Series, though, let's start off with a bang, right? Team Secret got matched up against Alliance for the first elimination match of Champ Weekend. They played in a cash out against each other, and both teams got sent to the lower bracket, which means we got to cast them, which is, hey, cool for us. We always love watching those two teams. And overall, Alliance winded up taking the series over Team Secret. Now, Team Secret took map 1 over Alliance. It was a really close series, but all these series were really close. I highly recommend you go watch the VOD here on our channel, as there are some insane moments, and dare I say, the most clutch barricade plays, which I never thought I'd ever say.
Dude.
Ever. Like, hands down,
Dude.
ever. Like, you've got Palma blocking a defib because he put a barricade right in front. Like, that is insanity, right in front of Elix.
I mean, and even when they don't have a barricade, somehow people hold up goo canisters and block bullets.
Oh, yeah. It was pretty insane overall. And, yeah, Alliance did wind up knocking out Team Secret. They were the first team to go for Champs Weekend. And overall, I am here to say, on the record, I think Alliance is back. You know, Cody, you mentioned some teams closing the gap and really taking PHL to kind of, I guess, get up to speed with what we see out of the top contending teams. And I agree. And I also agree that some teams, I felt like, maybe weren't taking PHL as seriously as others, right? They were kind of keeping this to just keep warm, maybe lab a few things because it's for fun, that kind of thing. But overall, you had some teams that were really, I think, a little more locked into growing and preparing for the major. And one of those teams, I want to say, is Fnatic. Fnatic looked amazing, I thought, all weekend. Especially if you put them on Fortune Stadium. And if you're any team that's competing in the major and you're going up against this Fnatic team in 3v3s, you better ban Fortune against them. I'm just telling you now. You better ban it. Those guys have the spawns and map control down to a T. And if you're not wiping them, they're making the map look like old school Nuketown sniper battles. I'm being for real.
Dude, I just want to hop in there and really say that the level of knowledge, like, I know you already said it, but there is not a single team I have seen in PHL or the qualifiers that have that much control on a map where it genuinely feels like, okay, GG's go next. Do not pick that map again.
Yeah.
They have such an insane level of control. It was crazy. And I'd love to see them play against, like, say, a top team like Nightmare, or even against like Alliance on that match, because I think it would probably be the craziest thing you'll ever see.
Yeah, I do know. I mean, obviously we're pretty good friends with Young, and Alliance is a team as well that we know have put the time in the lab to kind of learn the maps, learn the spawns, be able to control situations and things like that. And so I do think a Fnatic Alliance matchup in threes would be very interesting to watch. I mean, I'm sure those teams scrim and maybe people stream it, but I would love to see it obviously on a main broadcast where we can see
Yeah,
outlines and stuff. But
100%.
yeah, Fnatic, man, that team looks good, really good, very good. And I will say, I mean, I don't want to give them the title like most improved because they've always been a good team, but I mean that team I think has closed the gap the hardest out of any team in this league. Period. That's going to the major at least. We'll leave it there, because there are some teams which we'll talk about in a little bit that actually aren't going to be at the major. So yeah. Next thing is the second place curse. I wrote this down while we were watching EU. I will say maybe this only exists in Europe at this time, but the second place curse is real in cash out. And what do I mean by that? Basically, Cody and I on stream said that if you're in second place by the time box 5 and 6 spawns and you're in Europe, you're not making it, bro. You're going to third or fourth for sure. It has gotten to the point, at least in Europe, to where I think every single match we watched of cash out, if you were second place, you got griefed out into third or fourth, pretty reliably. And that was either like crazy spawns or just third party and griefing like normal, just your typical final situations. But in Europe specifically, I genuinely think I'm actually want to go back and watch the VODs to confirm this, but I think every single team that was in second place by the time the third and fourth fifth and sixth vault spawned, I think they winded up getting third or fourth overall.
Right.
For that map. So, all right, let's jump into phase 2, and we're going to breeze through this a little bit with Europe because it really wasn't as exciting, in my opinion, as North America. The phase 2 format winded up taking over 3 hours for 4 teams, and only resulted in a total of 9 points. The headline from this is Ape Squad took 9 straight losses. There were 9 final round or head-to-head matches played. Depends on if you're casual or if you play ranked and all that. There were 9 of those matches, 9 threes matches. Ape Squad was in all of them, and Ape Squad lost every single one of them. And it was brutal to watch. I ain't gonna lie to you. It was a little brutal to watch. We did see something a little similar where we saw a lot of teams playing each other over and over again on the main screen. But yeah, Ape Squad, man, rough one to say the least.
Yeah, I think we'll edit in the meme I made mid stream, right there.
Yeah.
I mean, it's unfortunate that that's what happened, but man, they are they're real ones for holding out.
I'll tell you. I mean, I couldn't do it. If I was them and I was 0-9, I'm all that for. Yeah. I'm sorry. I don't have that mental to stay in it like they did. So, props to them, first of all. I do want to talk about who also was in the group. So you had Ape Squad, which something to keep in mind, right? Because I'm going to mention also Emerald Apes, who is in this group. Emerald Apes was Emerald Grinders, and they were the team that qualified for the major, right? And then they got signed by Ape Squad, so they became Ape Squad. A couple weeks ago, unfortunately, we found out that their visas were not going to be approved to enter Sweden. And unfortunately, that means they can't attend the major. So Ape Squad has activated their second roster, and they picked up their runner-up team, which was Books. And now Ape Squad was the previous Books team. And now you have Emerald Apes, which was the old Emerald Grinders / Ape Squad team. Mm-hmm. As if it wasn't confusing enough. There you go. So that's kind of what's happening. And also worth mentioning, by the way, Ape Squad has 3 teams in PHL between NA and EU now. You have Emerald Apes, Ape Squad, and Ape Aura. So there's a lot of representation from the jungle in the league, but it is cool to have them. I do like to see that Ape Squad is still going to be representing in the major. I'm glad that they at least found a team. I mean, obviously Books is a team that we've seen in PHL since the beginning. So, I'm happy to see this team at least attending and representing Ape Squad and hopefully can bring it home. Along with that, though, we did have Alliance and then we did have Fnatic as well. The final results of championship stage 2 for Europe was Alliance with 5. They kind of just beat up on Ape Squad. Emerald Apes with 2 and Fnatic with 2. So there was a tie for second place for Emerald Apes and Fnatic, and unfortunately Ape Squad going home with 0. And that's really it. I mean, that's kind of all there is. There were some awesome plays. We unfortunately, of course, missed a lot of things that happened on the main stream for PHL because we were running the B stream. So, I'm sure there's a ton of headlines that we're probably missing, and I'm sure probably Artie is going to put out a video because he casted a lot of this. So be on the lookout for that. He always does great recaps of what's going on in the finals esports. But yeah, overall, really awesome day, long experience. But yeah, that's kind of the first half of it. But moving on to North America, which is where we're going to be spending a lot of time today. So North America, right? We ran a lot of B streams for North America this season. We ran 3 for the play days on Saturdays, and then obviously Champs Weekend as well. And we've really come to know a lot of these teams, and these teams kind of know us a little bit and things like that. So to give you a quick rundown of what happened, first team eliminated was Task Managers. They were eliminated by Nightmare. The next 3 were eliminated by the team that I'm deeming the Reckoning, which is Fire Strays. Fire Strays lost their cash out, and they got put up against Young Guns, took them out. Fire Strays then lost another cash out. They went up against Diminished, took them out. And then finally, Fire Strays got matched up against Kansas City Pioneers, and we've seen this matchup before. And all that I have here for notes is long with like 20 O's matches.
The best way to explain it is that they were given, what is it when you load into final round? How much time are you given?
It's like
I don't take note
like
of this because we don't use it. Yeah, so you're given about 20 minutes, right? Let's just say it would be like 10 minutes left on the clock and we still wouldn't even had the box plugged.
Yeah. First wipe was like 14 minutes or something.
I felt like I was watching Korea at 0.5 speed.
I felt like I was watching golf or chess with no time limit, with a 20-minute time limit. I mean, dude. Yeah. Okay, so those teams I've heard around the block that they scrim against each other a lot, like very commonly. And I will tell you from watching them, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah. They are very similar in pacing and play style. Fire Strays, a lot of discipline on that team in the way that they move, the way that they engage. They are a team. I mean, Kansas City Pioneers as well. Both teams are teams that compete and look like basically every death matters. They do not want to die, and they definitely don't want to wipe. The amount of fight resets you see out of those teams is unbelievable. It is insane that they do not wipe as fast as they probably should. And that's just, in my opinion, great discipline out of them, right? Like, NA scene has been known for the death ball. Like, we get somebody low, and it is just full 3 on somebody, just ape and kill them, and that is not these teams, not even close. So overall, really interesting change of pace, but man, long as hail matches.
Dude, genuinely, like, I can't even tell you what happened in those matches because how long they were.
Yeah.
I want to get a percentage on like how long they took up of the total runtime.
For phase 1, at least.
Champs.
Yeah. For phase 1,
it might
probably
be
75%.
like 10%.
Oh, I would say phase 1, maybe 75%. Not even kidding.
That's crazy.
That series, every single one of those matches went. I mean, I literally, okay, so Cody's game is on screen, right? Like, I'm watching him in Discord. I can't tell you the last time I've heard the halftime sound in a final round match. And I heard it, I think, every map. Yeah, when it like shows up halftime and it plays a little music and everything. I was like, oh my God, I don't think I've ever heard this in final round, at least watching PHL. And I think I heard it all 3 maps. So yeah, very slow pace of play out of them, but I mean, it worked out. Fire Strays did, of course, wind up toppling Kansas City Pioneers. I think it was map 3. I think that went the distance, 2v1. Let me double check that real quick. Yeah, it did. So it went to map 3, Fire Strays taking out Pioneers. And then finally, there was the qualifier match of Pioneers against Nightmare. So basically what happens is they move on to a qualifier, and the team that wins Wait, this bracket's wrong. Pioneers should not have been up there. Wait, I think the bracket's wrong. I don't know. Anyways, Nightmare wound up 2-0ing Pioneers. No, I'm right. Sorry. Fire Strays did make it through. Pioneers lost to Nightmare 2-0. There we go.
Yeah. So what? After that, I mean, we went into phase 2, right?
Yep.
That was the phase 2, which this is where, like Sam said, we're going to spend a lot of our time. It was Envy, FYR Strays, Nightmare, and SSG. And little did they know there was actually 2 Nightmares going into that phase 2. One was the team, and 2 was the experience for the players.
Yeah. So I think phase 2 for NA really showed the colors of the format. We really got a full 180 experience of what we got in Europe. And to show you kind of what I mean is Europe was all about let's grief in a single team. NA was all about let's grief out a certain team. Do not let them in. And unfortunately, that was Nightmare. And basically, the rundown was this. Nightmare took a huge lead. I mean, immediately. Up 4-0. They only needed one more map win, which means they needed to win a cash out, coming first or second in a cash out, and then move on to final round. And they needed to win one more map. And when I tell you a switch flipped and everybody picked up on what was about to happen, every single team and player on that server went against them. It was a full 3v9 situation to the point of it looked like people were lagging out because everybody was standing still waiting to see where Nightmare was. It was actually insane. Like literally Burrita, who's the typical observer for PHL, you watched him pause on the camera, open text chat to make sure that nobody was disconnecting. It was that frozen and standstill. And I want to give credit to Envy a little bit in saying that this is a team that I've always thought had really good macro knowledge, and they're known for having great comms. Envy, it seems like, always knew the big picture situation that they were in. And I felt like they led the charge, not necessarily led the charge on like griefing and teaming against Nightmare necessarily, but just like leading the charge on being like, we need to do everything we can to get into every single cash out and also like do what we can to help prevent Nightmare from doing so, which is the point of this format, right? And if you haven't watched it, Jerry the Music Man, one of the casters for PHL and also one of the casters for Major, has been running kind of a test version of this in Europe called Jerry's Not So Grand Finals. It's very casual format. The stream VODs are very funny if you want to watch them. He's had guests like a Telco hanging out with them and such. And it does absolutely incentivize teaming. It does. And match fixing. Because that's the situation. I mean, if somebody gets up to 4, it's like, I mean, it's either they win and we all lose, or we take them down and continue to live to fight another day. And that is the way that it is. So,
can I, real quick, just ask a question?
Sure.
Do we feel like match fixing is the right term? I feel like I've seen that thrown around a lot.
I don't think so.
I don't know if that means what we think it is.
I think match fixing... I don't know.
I could be wrong, but I'm asking the question.
I think match fixing is a rough word to throw around, even if that is kind of what it is, because it's always a negative connotation, right? Like, it's basically cheating. And I actually had this click for me earlier today, right? I play a lot of Magic the Gathering, okay? And I play a format called Commander. If anybody plays Magic here, what's up? But that is a 4-player version of a 2-player game, okay? Which is very similar to Cash Out. And more often than not, one player in that group winds up ahead significantly. Board state's huge. They got a bunch of creatures. They got powerful spells, blah, blah, blah. And the other 3 teams look at each other and they say, you got a counter spell, or do you have a kill spell, or do you have a board wipe, or like anything to stop this from happening? And typically somebody says, yes, please don't mess with me. I will take it out. And they're like, cool, I've got stuff to protect you to make sure that it happens, that you can reset that player and keep your game going, because you kind of need everybody to do it. And what happens in Magic, right, is the life total of that person starts to dwindle down until it gets right back about even to where everybody else is. And then the game's almost kind of reset. Typically somebody may have power crept up a little bit, and then the game continues on. And that, to me, is exactly how this format works after watching it, right? I think that is what happened here. We saw Nightmare take a huge lead, go up 4-0, and then everybody look to the left and right, they're like, fellas, we are foot. Like we cannot let them get this next point. We can't. We got to do whatever we can to make sure it doesn't happen. And does it feel bad for Nightmare? Oh yeah. Does it feel bad for me and Magic when I'm ahead and everybody teams on me? Absolutely. It sucks. But that is the format. That is exactly how it feels. And I don't consider that match fixing. I think that's playing the format. That's playing the tournament the way that it's made. And maybe it's not the best format for this. I mean, this is
match fixing is, just to say it blatantly, is what we saw in Valorant Challengers.
Right. Or that's CSGO, the skin scandals. Like, yeah, that's throwing your game intentionally for pretty much money or some sort of profit, which is not
for
what this was.
For some sort of reward, yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, anyways, that's kind of what happened. Right. So Nightmare kind of got heavily targeted. Okay. It was a straight up 9v3 for pretty much every single heat thereafter up until the last one. And it constantly went NV Fire Strays pretty much after that. I think Space Station Gaming got into one game and they lost their 3. I think. But overall, it winded up dwindling it back down to where then it became Nightmare, Envy, and Fire Strays, all with 4 points, right? Somebody's winning. Somebody's taking this thing home unless Space Station Gaming pulls out a miracle and ties it up to 4. And then now definitely somebody's winning on the next heat, right? Like that is how it works. And that, again, tying back to the Magic the Gathering analogy, like that's the same way that typically those games work out as well, right? Everybody gets back up to speed. It's kind of a reset. And then it gets to the point where it's like, somebody's winning this thing. Somebody's got something up their sleeve. And overall, Fire Strays winded up taking it. They once again got in with Envy and just won the map on Bernal, I think. And that was it, knocked them out. But I will say that final cash out match was like cinema. I think it was the best cash out match I've ever watched in my life. I don't feel like there was a lot of teaming or griefing or anything crazy. It felt like every team for themselves, which was the point of the format. We didn't get that in Europe.
I want to also say that it's something that I actually brought up right in the beginning of when this format was like starting, like in terms of being played. And I was like, there is going to be a moment, there's a chance that a bunch of people will have points, and no matter what, someone is going to win. And yes, it takes a hell of a lot of build up and work to get there. But goddamn, is that hype there? You're sitting there. Any team can take this home, and then there's one team that will make it go even longer, and you're like, oh my gosh, you're watching every second because every single play capitalizes into something for someone. And that, I mean, even if you're tuning out for 6 hours and joining in for that last 30, 40 minutes, I mean, that might be worth it. that might be worth it right there as a viewer.
It is great couch esports, and what I mean is maybe it was also because I was on like 4 hours of sleep both days, but it was definitely good esports in the sense of I was ready to go lay on my couch with my blanket. I'd knock out for about 3 or 4 heats, and I'd come back and catch the hype ending. Like that, it was perfect for that, I can tell you.
And the people that care can sit there and watch the whole thing.
Right, exactly. Kind of like
everyone's happy.
Yeah, like football on Sunday or golf or something. I don't know. F1. F1's a great example. Hot in the beginning. I'll tune out for a little while for the next hour or two, and then I come back right for the last 5 laps to see the final, chase down. So, yeah, overall, like, after some time and after the initial shock has worn off on me a little bit with the format, I think I've started to get it. I put on Twitter earlier today. We're getting ready to talk about this in a second, but I put on Twitter earlier today. I said, I don't know if I'm comfortable necessarily saying that I think the format is good or bad yet, because I've only seen it once. Like I've only seen it really once. Okay. I've watched Jerry stream. It's a taste of it, but like watching the 4 definite best teams or I mean, there's people you could maybe throw in there like KCP or something, but like these 4 teams were all really good. Nobody is griefing in somebody for a free win. It is just, you're not getting a free win. Okay. Which is, again, unfortunately, love you Books, love you Ape Squad, but going 0-9 kind of says what we have to say here, right? Like people were griefing you in because you were 0-9. That was not the case in NA. It was like, you need to like really think about who you're going to bring in if you're put in that position where you can grief someone in.
And every team was capable of taking it home.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Everybody was scared of bringing anybody in. I mean, people were scared of bringing SSG. People were, of course, scared to bring Nightmare in because, I mean, they were dominating. And then on top of that, it's risky enough just because you can't give them the chance for one map. And so, yeah. Anyways.
Okay. So let's just really ask the question that we've been waiting to ask. And that is, Sam, is the grand final format problematic for the future of the finals esports? Is the grand major in trouble? That is the title that we have. Is it in trouble? It took us a while to get here, but now we're asking.
Yeah. I think it can be in trouble. And I'm going to say... So,
don't be a fence sitter. Say yes or no. No, I'm just kidding.
I don't know. I want to see it in person to have a final opinion. By the end of Sweden, I got an opinion for you. I'm going to tell you if it sucks or if it's good.
Okay.
But I am going to say, and we're going to talk about it in a second as well, that it does make for good viewing. But I also got to say, I have a quote. I quoted myself earlier because I put this in Discord, and I fully stand behind this. I said, something people need to remember is players do need fans. Players, meaning the esports players, need fans to support their esport. But fans also need the players, right? Without players, we have no esport. Without fans, we have no esport because nobody's going to back it, right? Like, and I'm talking about like at a major scale, obviously. You know, people can run grassroots all they want, but like at the scale that we're at right now with the finals, on the cusp of it, really, in my opinion, blowing up, we have to make sure that we are balancing the fan experience and the player experience because we don't want to come out of the major and fans be like, God, that was grueling. It was so long. I didn't like watching Nightmare getting, teamed on the whole time. And we don't want Nightmare or another team be like, God, that was long. It was boring. I didn't like being teamed on the whole time. I'm going to go play X game instead. Like they have to make sure that they think about both sides because it is a cohesive unit in order to generate all this. Like if you're gonna have a successful esport, you gotta have fans behind it, and you gotta have players that actually want to play the game. And that's where I stand right now. I'm leaning on no. I don't think the format is good. Correct. I don't know if this is the best thing to do.
Let me hop in. Okay. All right. I think you're gonna take the fence sitter approach, and I'm gonna, for the content, I'm gonna be villain chair. Okay. All right. I think the format is bad for both viewers and I don't actually think this, by the way. I'm just playing villain chair. I think the format is bad, and I think it's bad for viewers and players alike and everybody involved because endurance is an important skill, but it should not be the defining factor of the winner. I also think that it should not take 6 hours to reach cinema.
Agreed. I agree.
There is a time invested factor and a reward factor, and I think right now the time invested is too high.
Yeah.
For everyone involved.
Yeah.
Especially the finals, it moves incredibly fast, and the format made the game feel the slowest it's ever been.
Oh, I agree. Absolutely.
So with that, I don't think these are how you fix it. A lot of people have said throughout the conversation, how can we fix this? I think there needs to be other ways to get points.
Yeah.
Or there needs to be less points involved. The problem with less points involved is it now might go too quick.
Yeah.
And you lose the reward altogether, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now we have this edge. If you allow more points to be gained, that also causes problems.
Yep.
So I don't have an answer, and I would love to see if maybe you have an idea. Like I said, none of us are saying that these are the ways to fix it, but people keep asking, how do we fix it?
Mm-hmm.
So I'm throwing ideas out.
I don't know. I do think, and this is something we said on the stream, right, as well, is there was a lot of times where it started to go from, man, I really hope this team wins, to, man, I'm ready for this to end. And that to me is like ding, 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 red flags. Like, whoa, like this is way too long. And I mean, we have felt that way, right? We felt that way with closed quals. We felt that way with open quals, especially. Like that was some of the main feedback I think we've ever heard from the Finals Esports so far is like, man, Love this game, love esports. This is a long day. And I do agree with you that endurance, I think, can be part of it, but it can't be all of it. And I do think at the end of the day, that is a bit of what we saw was teams losing their mental, and it winded up just being like who broke down the fastest. And I don't know. I don't know if that's what I want to see at the end. I mean, like on paper, Nightmare was the best team out there, right? But at the same time, Fire Strays had the best endurance. They played for 8 hours straight. They lost, I mean, most things until they made it to phase 2. And then they made it to phase 2. And then they played every single cash out and every single final round right after. And it was like, dude, this team should be broken, right? They should be so dead tired and not caring anymore. But I think they were getting small wins that kept them up. And that's actually, Sloth replied to me on Twitter with something similar. He's like, yeah, we got that map win finally against Envy. And that kind of like jolted us up and kept us going. So one thing I'm curious on is like at the major with a crowd, with energy in the room and not just being in my bedroom with the lights off, like, will that keep these teams going? And that's something that's
should
important.
you have to be in that situation for the format to be good?
Right.
No.
I don't know.
Okay.
In my opinion,
here's
no.
another thing I will say that is also very important conversation is that, okay, if this is split into 2 days, is it really that bad? We don't know. That's, I think, the biggest contention is that maybe we don't need to change anything at all. And it's literally, hey, we just do phase 1 one day and phase 2 the other day. And it's like, oh, actually 5 hours for that really wasn't that bad. And it was actually really entertaining because we had a break in between. Here's the other question, though. Do you think, and someone in chat actually just said this is live, so I'm gonna read it off. Stormy Hole. In my opinion, the game mode is the issue, not the format. Is the game mode the issue? And I saw someone say on Twitter, what if every cash box was the same value the whole time? And it's just first to the most money. You can still double, you can just still do all that stuff, but literally there is six vaults, and they are all the same amount of money. Does that fix anything, Sam? I don't think so, right?
I don't think so. I don't think it fixes like griefing.
So how do we fix cash out? Let's put the thinking caps on. How do we fix cash out? What do we do?
I think you've gotta. I'm to the point with cash out where I've had this discussion so many times that in my opinion, you just have to choose whether you want fun or whether you want competitive integrity, and that's kind of the two options. I really don't know if I have a solution for cash out anymore. Every time I hear a good recommendation or something, I'm like, okay, that works. And then we think about it longer and we're like, actually not really. Like the teams are still going to grief out somebody. It's a multi-team format, which instantly can make it, I mean, let's take quick cash, for example, right? Okay, every cash box is now worth the same value, right? So it's essentially now quick cash. It's like who secures the most boxes, right? Which at that point, why not just do quick cash? I got to secure 2 boxes and I'm in, Okay, I'm still going to be 3v6. Like at some point in the match, I'm going to be ahead and everybody's going to look at me and they'll be like, yeah, we got to get that guy in 3v6. Like I think this is a problem kind of the game mode, but I don't know if it's a fixing point of the game mode more than the fact that maybe multi-team competitive esports is just not as competitively viable as a 1v1. I think that is why the largest esports in the world, with the exception of maybe battle royales, which again, different story in my opinion, but like League of Legends, one team against one team, Counter-Strike, one team against one team, Call of Duty, one team against one team, yada, you get what I'm getting at here. I am just not sure at this point that a multi-team format is going to be quote unquote competitively viable. I think that's just whatever each to this point.
I think you're right. I think unfortunately there's never going to be the answer. And with that though, I think we are still damn far from perfect.
Yeah.
And I think there's a lot of, ways to get this a little bit closer to that perfection that I'm not smart enough to have an answer for. And I don't know if really anyone is. We just need to find some sort of middle ground. And I'm willing to try all of them.
Yep.
I will absolutely not tell anyone that is a terrible idea. If you want to make all the cash boxes the same value, let's ball. Let's give it a try. Sure.
Yeah.
The worst thing you can do is it not work. I mean, we tried it. Okay, yeah. That now we can at least stop talking about that one and move on to the next one.
Yeah.
So with that though, do we feel like, I mean, A3A2 said it, anonymous teams, do we feel like that fixes anything? Or do you feel like
So
It's a
let's
band-aid
that's
solution.
yeah. So actually, I'm moving stuff around right now. We have a notepad with all of our topics. We got a lot of topics today. Okay, so let's jump into this then, because I Lasagna went live today. Lasagna, the medium from Nightmare, went live today for 45 minutes, and he kind of, obviously chat asked him a lot of questions about the experience. They gave their opinions. He responded back, and there's a lot. Okay. I will say, I don't think I wrote it down. I don't see it here, so I'll make sure I don't say it again. Somebody brought up about anonymous mode, and he says something that I think is true. He's like, anonymous mode doesn't fix the problem, okay? Because teams have certain play styles. They use certain weapons. They use certain gadgets. They do all these things that make them pretty unique. And the finals is such a developing game in esports scene. I mean, for example, Team Curie, we've got Akazo on Goo Gun with Pyromine and Deagles. Do you mean to tell me if I had anonymous mode and I see somebody with Goo Gun, Deagles, and Pyromines, I'm not going to know who that is?
Yeah.
Okay, counterpoint. Let's go back to what we were just talking about. Let's talk about champs yesterday, right? If I see a team playing super slow and off point and dragging the match out as long as possible, am I not going to think that's Fire Strays? Like these are people who stream against each other so much. Like we said earlier with the scrims against KCP and Fire Strays, right? Like it's to the point where those two teams basically seem the same because they know each other inside and out. That's all. A lot of these teams, they know each other inside out. They know all the little micro isms that are to each team. And I'm just not sure that anonymous mode fixes it. It might fix it for like the first set of cash outs, but I think by the end of that match, everybody's going to know what team everybody is, and they're going to get back to the same problem. So, yeah.
So you mentioned the whole thing from the lasagna VOD. Let's just go into it. Let's jump into that.
Yeah. Okay. So, yeah, right before this, I was watching Lasagna's VOD from Nightmare. Again, medium player, great guy. Drop him a follow, very entertaining streamer, and very transparent about the scene and his thoughts as a player and things like that. He's a good dude. I did reach out to him. I asked him if it's okay to use these notes that I have, and he's got a message as well that I will read here towards the end. Okay, so but he's perfectly happy we've been given the okay to use this. So okay, here we go. So some background, which I didn't know. Lasagna came from professional Fortnite. He had some tournament winnings, he said, and things like that. And he felt like yesterday he had a better chance winning in a battle royale than he did in 12s. He felt like he stood a better chance going 1v99 than he did going 9v3, which is true. I mean, I think there's a lot of reasons why. I think, the high time to kill in the finals is part of that problem. The explosiveness of like a heavy, for example, like there's a lot of guardrails in place, right, to make it where a player is not going to 1v9 in the lobby, especially when it's the best of the best players in the lobby in general. And then he left another point as well, right? He said what tournament organizers may have failed to think about is once the top team has been identified, it won't be just focusing on bringing them back to the mix, which kind of ties back to what I said earlier about like Magic the Gathering and Commander, right? Like the life totals get reset, and then the game's kind of like, all right, we're all equal. Back to it. He felt like it would be focused on putting them actually behind at all costs, which is kind of the sentiment I've heard a little bit about that final cash out match. Is Nightmare still felt targeted towards the end, even though there's now teams in like a lethal zone, right? Like Fire Strays had 3 points, Envy had 3 points, whatever. Like it was like to that point. I forget what the point totals were at that point, but
I think that makes sense because like just in human nature, once the target's been drawn on your back, it's kind of hard not to look at it.
Right. It's hard not to get into a rhythm after you've done it for 4 to 5 straight games of like, I'm going to continue to target this exact team because it's worked for me so far, right. Especially if you're like Envy and Fire Strays, who it literally has been resulting in profit for you. SSG contributing to that mix. Another point from that stream is Hogs, which is the coach of Space Station Gaming. He put in the Twitch chat, it's okay, surely they fixed the issue before the major. Lasagna responded with, nah, Hogs, see, the thing is, it's not an issue. He personally, I guess, doesn't think that the mode itself is the problem. It just kind of is what it is. Like this is what happens when you play Cash Out. This is kind of it. And to double down on that, even Flack, the CEO of Nightmare, says, what I learned from last night is live and let be. This is the reality. We will do what we can to prep and go next, which I think it's good. I think that's accepting that cash out is this way. I think it's accepting that the final format is this way. And now we need to strategize instead of like being on tilt, being like, how do we overcome this? How do we 3v9? And I will give props to Nightmare that is what I saw out of them yesterday. I saw them try to do multiple things to flip the script on them, right? The biggest one was Monaco. On Monaco, they had box. They would plug it first. Of course, that basically sent up the back signal of like, here we are. And then everybody would go after him, right? And we would see them leave their cash out and basically rotate to the other one that the other teams left. Because, I mean, if you lose, we win. Like, that was the current situation that all the other teams were in. And they're like, okay, you guys fight over that box. I'm going to that one on the other side of the map, and I'm going to go take that instead. I loved seeing that out of them. It didn't work out. I think they just got caught on the rotate pretty much every time, but like that was very smart. And I loved seeing that like on the fly thinking. And unfortunately, it does sound like it just like that motivation to keep brainstorming, keep trying just started to dwindle throughout the series. But I do think that's something that's actually good that comes out of this format. It takes you out of the rhythm. We said, for example, hey, what if they just went double heavy with barricades and dome and like goo gun and just turtled onto point and just made sure that they secured the cash out at all costs, even if they wipe after? Like, just play for second point place. You know what I'm saying? I think that was cool. And I do like that Flack, you know, has said, like, we're going to prep and go next. Like, GG, go next. It is what it is. And I think this now has given them the opportunity to be like, how do we counteract this? Do we start slower? Don't come out of the gate as hot. Maybe that is a strategy, you know? And so, yeah. Anyways, final point I have is I DM'd Lasagna, of course, like I said, asking permission to talk about some of the things that he said on the VOD. And he had the following to say. So this is from him. He says, all in all, it is what it is. The format can be improved by at least providing some incentives so teams who arrive to 4 points first don't get punished as heavily as we did. Because if not just you keeping a repeat of 5 hours of 3 teams jumping on the same team, which honestly, from both a viewer and a player, it just isn't enjoyable. Totally valid. He then says, I get the format provides the most enjoyable viewpoint for the viewers, but realistically, the first team who gets 4 points is too heavily punished. It encouraged 2 teams, Envy and Fire, teaming and not shooting at each other for 4 matches in a row, which is a form of match fixing, but at the same time, a valid strategy, so they can't be faulted, which is going back to the point we said earlier about match fixing. I think match fixing is a little strong word at this point because, again, it carries such a negative connotation. He then continues with, once again, embark the format. The players aren't at fault. We had a chance to win and lock in on Skyway, but after getting teamed on for 4 hours straight, even when another team was on match point, we just kind of lost motivation. The effort just wasn't worth it. It was honestly demoralizing, and truthfully, am not even excited for majors anymore. Just excited to go to Sweden. It sucks to hear that they're like obviously a bit demoralized. I think that's gonna be the case when you come off a crushing kind of loss like that. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I don't think that's something permanent. I think that's just an in the moment thought, and I think we're gonna continue to see teams take that and push further. I think this is a growing pain for the finals esports. It's new, it's exciting, but it also isn't perfect, and that's okay.
Yeah. So, Cody, overall, we're kind of reaching the end here of the podcast episode. Chat, we see you as well. We're going to address what you guys are saying here in a minute, but I have one more thing that I wanted to talk about. There is obviously been public backlash about the format in general on Twitter from some people in the scene. One of those things was obviously about Space Station Gaming, which I saw a message about chat here in a second, and I've heard some things about like Space Station Gaming felt like they were being griefed and things like that. And like when you watch the player POVs, it felt like they were never in a fair fight. I'm going to drop some numbers here. I don't know if it necessarily tells the true story of like that team or anything. Okay. So like just, these are just numbers. This is all I got. But I do want to say this. So Fire Strays' cash out record until the beginning of phase 2 of yesterday, they were 13-7. And at the end of phase 2, they were 20-8 in cash out, which is a crazy record. Again, I mean, Envy and Fire Strays kind of played together and padded a lot of these stats. But Envy, their record pre-phase 2 was 12-7. And at the end of phase 2 was 18-9. Nightmare, their record pre-phase 2 was 15-5. And after phase 2 was 17-11. Here's the number for you, okay? Here's the one. Space Station Gaming, their cash out record until phase 2, 12-7. Pretty decent, you know. After phase 2, they were the only team out of those 4 to have a negative record. 13-14. 14 losses, 13 wins. And even if they had 2 points on the board, that puts them, 14-14, maybe 15-14. But they are the back end of the pack. And I am not a coach, and I am not as good as SSG, and I love those guys. I chat with them on Twitch and stuff, and they're good people. But I will say, just looking at the numbers, I think there's some work to do in cash out for you personally. That's just all I gotta say. Cody, do you have any thoughts?
No, I think you summed it up relatively well. I mean, at the end of the day, I think the best team in the moment, in that environment, in that situation, won. Does that mean they are the best team? Does that mean they are the best team at cash out or the best team at 3v3 or this or that? We can change the perspective all we want, but nonetheless, like some people have said, that the best team in that moment won champs.
Yep. Yeah.
And that is up for debate. I'm not the all-knowing eye. That's just what I think. I think that's fair to say. In the moment, the best team won.
Yep. I do want to address.
Do I think real quick? Do I think Nightmare deserved to win? Yes, until the end-ish.
Yeah.
I think they deserved to win until it kept going, and it is what it is.
Yeah. I do think that. I think if Nightmare were as locked in to that final match, that final cash out match, which again I felt like did not have
first match,
did not have as much griefing, teaming, etc. I felt like that final cash out, if they had that same drive and passion that they had in that first one or first 2, I think they would have taken it home. Even Laz, I mean, he says just flat out, he's like, we just weren't motivated anymore. We were ready to be done. He did say like, the major's going to have more on the line. So if we're at 4 points, we don't think that's going to happen. But I mean, yeah, that's the situation. I think it just comes down to Fire wanted it more. Envy probably wanted it more as well. And that does come obviously because they had been winning back-to-back matches and they're kind of riding that dopamine the entire way through.
I'm so sorry, Sam. I want to interrupt real quick. Hypothetically, I did hear something. What if this format was the same concept, but whoever has the most points after X amount of heats just plays a 3v3 to call it?
Wait, sorry, run that again? What?
I'm really thinking this. This just kind of came to me. Okay, so imagine you have max, you can play 5 heats or whatever, or 6 heats.
Okay.
And then if you hit the 6 heats and no one has won, then it's like, all right, everyone take a step back. Who has the most points right now?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, who has the second most points? All right, best of 3. This is it. This is all the money. And so you get that point where it's like, it's possible for it to happen, but we have like an if. Okay, this is going way too long. We've hit the limit. Let's just get that last 3v3 out and call it a day.
Yeah.
And I think that could work because now you're getting that situation where you're letting it go. Everyone gets a fair chance, but it's like, okay, we've reached our five heats. Nothing's happened. Nothing's changed. Who's doing what they need to do? Okay, this team's at 4, this team's at 3, the rest of the teams are at 1, whatever, blah, blah, blah. Let's go.
Yeah.
It goes back to bracket.
Yeah, I agree.
And I think that might work if we just have an emergency break.
Yeah.
For the format. So we're not sitting there for 8 hours.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, we're reaching hour 5. Ring the bell. Ring the bell. We gotta wrap this up, boys. Time's coming.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're right. I mean, this format showcased how close the gap is in North America between the top teams. I think that's like, we came into North America kind of expecting that. Like, we came out of EU on Saturday and we're like, I don't think Champs is going to go this way for North America. I think it's going to go the distance. And when we saw the lineup that we had going into Champs, we were like, this is going the distance.
I think I cooked, honestly.
Yeah, I think you cooked.
I think you cooked.
Well, one last thing I wanted to see is Shaxira in chat says, thoughts on Envy choosing Fire over SSG on Soul Heat 6, even though Fire was on match point. This was busy wenching normalized while stealing the cash out. I do think that Envy got kind of wrapped up in thinking that bringing fire with them was working. And I think you are correct. I think Envy has done a great job the entire weekend. I think you could watch all those heats and you can see that they really were locked into the macro of what's happening, right? Like the big picture. But I do agree with you. I think they probably should have taken the risk instead of bringing fire with them, because fire's not going to gain any points in that situation. And the deficit from Space Station to Envy was enough to where they could sacrifice points, right? Like it's kind of a no harm, no foul thing. But if Envy manages to score a point, that puts them ahead. And then they're contesting Nightmare. They're both the top 4 teams. And to be honest with you, 2 teams aren't going to be griefing 2 teams at the same time. It really would equal things out. So I do think that was probably a miscalculation. Maybe Envy is watching the VODs and they think the same thing. And then maybe we see that kind of play happening in the major. I mean, that is the point. This is the first time we've had a format of this style. So there's no telling, right? Like I think teams are seeing a new macro that they haven't seen before, because previously it was all points, right? It was typically like, let's just take out one team throughout the entire season kind of thing. Like towards the end of play days, you started to get there, and then it became an elimination bracket once you got to champs, and it was like, okay, well, the points don't matter anymore. But now that same macro style is still existing here at the grand final. And so I agree. I think that, yeah, it was probably a misplay. I do think probably they should have brought in Space Station. I think any of those teams, whether you were Fire Strays or Envy, probably should have broke the alliance at some point and brought in Space Station for one at least to try to get yourself the upper edge over the other person, because that was the case. We saw the bar coming up, and I mean, you saw what happened. Fire Strays versus Envy, it all came down to that. Maybe Envy felt like they had a good chance against Fire Strays. Maybe Fire Strays felt like they had a good chance against Envy, though. I don't know. I don't know what the proper answer is, but I'd be curious nonetheless. So, and I think that's kind of it, guys. I think that's everything we have here on this episode of Around the Arena Chat. I know some of you came in late. Just quick introduction again. I'm Sam. This is Cody. We run this channel called The Finals Central. This is the first time we have done Around the Arena live here on Twitch and YouTube. But we've been doing this podcast now for 3 seasons. This is our 2nd episode of season 3. We wanted to wait till after esports was done before the major so we could, talk about it all. But we do podcast episodes talk about not just esports in the finals. We talk about the casual scene. We talk about other stuff happening with Embark, other gaming things. So if you enjoy podcasts that are typically centered around the finals, check us out over on YouTube, The Finals Central, or check us out also at Spotify, where we upload the audio of these podcasts as well. We've got interviews with people like Young, Waltz, Rio, people from PHL, et cetera, et cetera. And we are hoping maybe post-major, once teams have calmed down, to get more interviews with players.
Wait! There's something else we're doing at the major.
There is something else we are doing at the major. If you're new here as well, we typically do watch parties. We did do B streaming for PHL this season as well, but one of the things that we do is a watch party. We've done it for all of PHL. We did it all for close quals, and we're actually going to do our best to try it live at the major. The way that it's going to work is our similar format. Go check our VOD from yesterday if you want to check it out, where we have the gameplay and things like that like normal. We'll have this ticker down below with all the up-to-date news stories happening throughout the tournament. But our cameras are going to be live from the crowd in Stockholm, Sweden at DreamHack. So, again, we're going to have to make sure that it actually works. But we've got it in the lab and it works here. And so we will do that there. And if you guys are in Sweden or coming to the major, stop by and say hey to us. We'll be wearing TFC shirts and Cody will be cosplaying and it'll be a good time overall. So, yeah. Anyways, guys, that is it. Cody, anything else before we head on out of here?
Just the good old, well, I guess we'll see you guys around the arena.
There you go. All right. See you, everybody.
Cinema. Cinema.